I walk a crooked road to get where I am going. To get where I am going, I must walk a crooked road. And only when I'm looking back, I see the straight and narrow. I see the straight and narrow when I walk a crooked road.
Well, hey there, beautiful internet people. Just wanted to jump on real quick and talk about something that came up within the last couple of weeks that reminded me of a saying some of you who know me have heard me say before, and some of you have probably heard this phrase before. And it's a phrase that got me in trouble with a physician who had been referring patients to me many, many years ago. And before I reveal what that statement or comment is, I'll give you a little background on where it came from and what had happened. So many years ago, I had left the hospital environment as a respiratory therapist, working. I worked pediatric ICU, adult trauma ER, pediatric trauma ER, and adult ICU and cardiac care units and special procedures, and had done a lot of things in the hospital. So I left that and ventured into home health and started with a small little mom and pop DME company. And one of the patients that I had seen after I started there, after about a month or two after being there, came in, and at that time I was working a lot with sleep apnea patients, setting up CPAP and sleep therapy devices for sleep apnea. And this older gentleman came in and just, on death's doorstep, had was a couple steps away from long-term memory care, was being worked up for dementia, early onset dementia, had a number of behavioral issues that really damaged some friendships, some family relationships, and some professional relationships were damaged, if not severely broken completely. And he had been on CPAP therapy for 4 or 5 years by this point. And so I took his machine, and these machines are beautiful, or at least they used to be. I don't know what kind of information they provide now. ResMed used to be my favorite. No affiliation with them at all, no sponsorship at all, but they're, my personal opinion, I think ResMed is a far superior machine for providing a therapy for sleep apnea. Anywho, I digress. I downloaded his machine, and on his data, he was perfect using it every night. Every night he was using it like clockwork. He was putting it on, but what was happening was the therapy that he was on was triggering or exacerbating a type of sleep apnea that you don't treat with just regular CPAP, or even, in some cases, BiPAP. And when I discovered it and how severe it was, I kind of threw a Hail Mary and said it would be easier to ask for forgiveness and permission, and slapped him on a machine called an ASV. It's an auto servo ventilator that automatically adjusts the volume and of air going in and out of the lungs every minute to help get rid of or control what's called central sleep apnea, which is a neurological apnea. It's not an obstructive type apnea. It's a neurological apnea. And the ASV machine corrects that. Is made just for that. And you would think, once I put him on it, very next day he called, said, it's the first time he's felt clear headed. After a week, he was mending relationships that he could mend, was feeling better, was getting rest, getting sleep, no longer needing any kind of testing for dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that. And and you would think he would have been happy, actually, quite happy and grateful for the fix. And don't get me wrong, he was to a certain degree, but at the same time, he was very angry. And he was angry because the previous 4 or 5 years had been spent miserable, where his temper and his cognition had been affected so greatly by lack of sleep that he lost relationships, severely damaged relationships with his children and loved ones. And the person who had been in my position prior to me had also done downloads on this machine and had also yielded the same results and same information that I ended up acting on. And when he came back to see me a week or so later, he was angry. He was very, very angry, wondering why the previous respiratory therapist did not catch or act on the results that I had found. And because the results were, the information, the data had not changed or had not gotten any better or was not any different than the data that I had obtained. And I couldn't answer that for him. I didn't know. I didn't know why somehow it got slipped through the cracks or whatnot. And then he went into, well, aren't you all trained the same? Aren't you all, get the same education and all this kind of stuff? And to a certain point, yes, we do. However, the education that you receive that you have to pass tests on don't end up always translating into real life, as many of you know. And when you have exposure to a certain type of care, you get very good at that, and the other aspects of or facets of the type of job that you have fall off. So, for example, if all I did was work in the ICU, I wouldn't know one thing about setting up, a home CPAP device. Because that wouldn't be something that, the machines that we use in the hospital are completely different. And so I was ignorant in that because that's all I did was ventilators and ICU and pediatric ICU and adult ICU and ER and all that. But what I did come with was a lot of laboratory experience, a lot of chemistry, a lot of hematology and blood gas analysis and correction using ventilators and correcting blood gas values through ventilation modification and whatnot. So in the process of explaining to him that, we all have different experiences that lead us to different outcomes or lead us to different actions based on the same data, I let a little, kind of a smart-ass comment, joke slip. And what I said to him, and like I said, some of you who know me have heard me say this before, and those who don't know me have probably heard it from someone else, but if you haven't heard it before, the saying goes, what do you call a med student who graduates last in their class? Doctor. And the meaning behind that at that time was, we all may have the same education, but we all have different experiences, and we come away with that education remembering only so much of that. And, not to say that somebody who graduates last of their class is a poor doctor, but it's just to illustrate a part because some people just don't test well, but they do great once they're out in the field. And like me, I'm not a great tester, but I have great, good intuition. Well, he took that back that when he was expressing his frustration to his primary care physician, he had repeated that statement to his doctor, which his doctor did not appreciate, and especially taking it out of context. So But what happened a couple weeks ago reminded me of this whole thing, and so I know I digress, and I'm taking a long way around to it. But this, what had happened a couple weeks ago was I was on the phone with what I considered a colleague, somebody who had identified themselves as um, a spiritual healer, a had all this education and knowledge and experience and certifications and uh, college educated in psychology and metaphysical studies. And so not only did I consider them a colleague, but I also considered them possibly even a mentor in those things, or had in the back of my mind that maybe this person could be a mentor for my progression and exploration and journey into self-discovery and enlightenment. And so we had met, talked a number of times, and then we were on the phone, and we were talking about they were sharing a story that they ran into this older gentleman who had lost his wife many years before and had continued to ruminate on that and closed his heart to any love and any more love and just this person on the phone thought that was really romantic and very that they don't want to have any love towards anybody else. And I got it. I mean, I understood that part of it. But also my left brain, and this is where the conversation went sideways. I told this person that, hey, when you're telling me about this older man and how he's been ruminating on the loss of his wife and that he doesn't have room in his life for anybody else, it's a grief cycle that and emotions that my left brain says is a habit that has been created. And this person got upset and disagreed with me about emotions becoming habits. And I said, well, there's a lot of societal pressures at first that you must show outwardly grief towards the loss of a loved one, because if you don't, then you're considered callous and cold and unfeeling. So, of course, you're going to feel that grief, absolutely. There is also um, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, there's this outside societal pressure or that we internalize as if I feel happy, I'm dishonoring or not loving this person that I lost. And I will feel guilty about that. And that happens often enough that the feeling becomes a habit. And the body then feels normal in this new habit of feeling this grief and this loss and not allowing new love to come in. The way that my colleague had responded was quite surprising and quite shocking and disappointing. Their response was to hang up on me and block me uh, uh, from social media, from phone contact, from everything. And which was quite surprising, disappointing, but also illuminating. So, where am I going with all this? Be careful when you start looking for guidance, counseling, spiritual leaders, life coaches. There are a lot of people out there, not all of them. There's quite a few people out there that are doing great work, wonderful work, beautiful work. But there are a few who got into this work um, for attention, for money, And the most dangerous is to work out their own problems. And if they haven't recognized what their issues are and what their own problems are, they can project them onto their clients and try to solve their problems vicariously through their clients, which can lead a client off into the wrong direction and get them off of their own true path because they've been unconsciously led down this dysfunction of this therapist or counselor or life coach's own personal um, issues that they need to work on and aren't working on and refuse to look at them, so they see them in everybody else and think that they need to be solving those same problems, even though they don't have them themselves, if that made sense. So be careful about who you choose, but don't be afraid to go look for help. Go look for counseling. Find somebody who meets you and resonates with you and makes you feel comfortable and safe. Um, and if you don't feel right, if your intuition is telling you, hey, I don't know if they're on the same page or really understand why I'm here, then don't stay with them. Find yourself somebody else. That's okay. That counselor or that therapist that doesn't resonate with you may resonate beautifully with, a bunch of other people, and they'll stay in business and they'll be just fine. But that doesn't mean they have to resonate with you or that you have to resonate with them to get the outcome that you were seeking counseling for to begin with. Don't be afraid to look for a second opinion or go with your gut and just say, this person doesn't fit. And that's pretty much about it. I just wanted to put that out there. It was something that it just came up out of the blue and a bunch of connections put together, and thought it would be important to let you know that, just be aware. Just because they have titles behind their name, and that includes MD or, PhD or whatever it is, just because they have those, they were educated, and yes, they know a lot about what they were educated in. That doesn't mean they can translate that into real life and understand where you're coming from. It just means they met the criteria that whoever was educating them on needed them to meet. And that doesn't always resonate with everybody and is useful for everybody. And some cases can be harmful when new clinicians come out of school and they go by the book. And you can go follow an algorithm and a checklist and all this kind of stuff, when the person just needs somebody to listen and be there and be flexible and understanding and show love and acceptance through understanding. Well, anyways, that's what I had to say. I hope that's helpful. You all have a beautiful day, and thanks for tuning in. Hit the like and the subscribe. It really helps out. And just remember, you are good enough. You are powerful. You are loved. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
I walk a crooked road to get where I am going. To get where I am going, I must walk a crooked road. And only when I'm looking back, I see the straight and narrow. I see the straight and narrow when I walk a crooked road.